Okay, here we are back. We just finished up with, in the previous video, lines from both sides. Now we're going to talk about normal. All right, so first let's go ahead and grab some solid items. So I'm going to go to my solid ribbon here, and I'm going to grab me a sphere, and I'll click on all viewports, and I'll just drag, get a ball out here. And then I'll go to a cone and just click there and just get me a cone. Out here as well, and we'll change that to a different layer, right? And let's see, we'll go ahead and hide this. We'll hide it. And there's one other thing that I want, and I want to get a curve with a freeform curve. So I'm going to go ahead and click there, change to my yellow layer, and I'm just going to click out a curve here with all different kinds of angles going on, right? Kind of a weavy snake thing going on. All right, so I have this out here. Now, line from normals, right? Get a line with a command line normal. What it does is it's going to take the it's going to go to the normal of the curve. And what are normals? We talked about direction in the previous videos, right? The direction of the curve. If you go in here, type in dir, hit enter, it'll give you the direction. So this is the start point and this is the end point, right? And you can flip those directions, right? So that's not what this is all about, all right? And if you go in here and you type in direction, here, that's what this is about here. These are the normals of the surface. Every surface, and you notice that this one, it's a closed polysurface. How do we know? It says closed polysurface here in our properties. And they're pointing out, okay? On closed surfaces, you want your directional arrows, the white ones, pointing out. If they're not, if they're pointing in, and you go to do a boolean or cut something with something, it'll probably do the opposite of what you want. And we'll talk about that when we get to the solids menu and talk about the booleans. But one thing to remember, if you're going and trying to cut things or boolean things, difference or boolean union or something like that, and you're getting the opposite of what you're trying to do, check your directional or normals on your surface, because they're probably backwards. That's one of the things. And if you go over here and I right click, you can see that I can click on the normals to that, right? If I go here on the curve and I click on it, it'll just give you the direction, right? Now with the normals on the surface, let's do the surface first. So we'll go to our curve, we'll grab a line, and we'll go just the normals, and it'll say select curve surface poly face or sub D for normal line. And what this will do is it will lock it into the normals of that surface or curvature of a line. So let's go ahead and hit enter. Well, wait, right click, bring it back. I'll go to normal, select my item. Now I can place it anywhere on that item, anywhere I want, and then I can click and it'll just drag it, it'll lock it in. I could drag it inside the item or I can drag it outside the item, but it's going to lock it into the normals of that surface. And I'll do that again real quick. Normal, and I'll select my surface. Wait a minute, right click, normal, select surface, hit enter. Oh, mate. Normal, select my surface, and now I can place it, and right away it turns on, and it locks them into those normals of the surface. And I can go inside or I can go outside, right? That's with any polysurface or surface face, right? And if I do it to this one, it's going to do the same thing. So I'll right click, bring back the line command, go to normal, select my item here, and then I'll find me a spot, and you can see it's going right there. If you look at that arrow, that normal's pointing out, right? It's going right with that normal, right? Now, so that's how you use the, get a pretty much straight line coming out, exactly with the normals of the surface itself, okay? And now with the line, it's a little bit different, okay? It's going to go with the curvature of the line. And how do we know the curvature, right? What's going on with that? So I'm going to throw you deep inside Matrix and Rhino here. You can go to curvature graph, and I'm going to go ahead and hit enter, right? And so it's select objects for curvature graph to display. So if I select my line there and I hit enter, it brings up this little graph type thing, right? And a pop-up, right? Now the pop-up over here, the curvature graph pop-up, I can make those bigger or smaller, so it depends on how you want to see them. And I can also add more hairs, make it more dense, or make it a little bit wider, depending on what you're trying to do and what you're trying to look at. This is very important later on down the line when you're connecting, joining many lines together. You want to check the continuity, how smooth they are, right? So that you get a nice smooth surface when you do your sweep commands, right? So let's go back to curvature. I mean, curves. So if I go here and I grab me a line and I go to normal, and I'll just kind of pick my line there. Now it's locked onto that line. Anywhere I go on that line, if I drag it off, I'll get a sorry, it's not going to work. So I'll grab one close to one of those hairs and I'll just click on it and see, you can see it's kind of locked into the curvature of that hair. That curvature graph is showing the curvature of the line. So it's going around this way. It's real fine here because it's kind of straight. Then it's making a curve, so it's bowing out a little bit. And then it comes back into straightness, so it comes back together. And then it's sweeping over to the other side, covering back this way. So that's kind of what it's showing you. It's showing the curvature of that line, right? So that's kind of how you use normals. It's going to go to the normal to the surface, it's going to lock it in, or it's going to lock it into the curvature of a line, right? And you don't need this on when you do it. You can just do it without. So here I'll just click on my line. This time we'll go to both sides because we have the normal here, and we'll click on both sides. We'll select our line, it locks it in, and I'll lock it right there, and it just locks it right in. I can't move it any direction besides the normal of that curve or the directional surface. All right. So I hope that explains it, but it's a pretty useful tool when you go to add things on the side of a ring instead of maybe extracting something maybe you can't get in there, or it's kind of a difficult place to get to. It's not a bad tool to know that it's available, and once you get more into Matrix, you'll understand how to use it a little bit more. Okay, there is one thing that I forgot to mention with the normals, right? So let's go back and grab that line curve. And if I click on normal, right? And now in our command line, we have another option here. Ignore trims no, and ignore trims yes, right? So right now, we're just going to click off that because we need to set it up to show how it's going to work. So if I go to my tools, and we'll grab another ring rail out there, and we'll just accept that, and we'll add a profile to it. Now, if I do this one, it'll be a one surface, right? NURB surface, which we'll talk about later. NURB surface is just one surface. We need something that's a multiple surface because a lot of times you'll have things that'll have multiple surfaces. Those are polysurfaces. Polysurfaces are made up of many different items, many different segments. So let's go ahead and click on here, and then I'm just going to activate this, and I'll show you what I mean about polysurfaces and NURB surfaces because it's probably pretty important at this point, since we're going to talk about this next command. So I'll go ahead and hit enter here, right? And what is this again? We can type in what, W-H-A-T, and W-H-A-T, what, and we can see that it's a polysurfaces. Polysurface. It's made up of edges, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, it looks like 5 edges possibly. So, and how do I know that? If I click on it right here, it looks like it's all one, right? But it's really not. So this is, it's got some sharp edges. See those edges right there? They're real sharp. Those are usually never one surface. Those are always made with two surfaces. So what we're going to do is take this, and what we can do is explode it, right? Now we can see each one of those segments. See, so this is one segment here, and that's another segment there. And so you can go through it and check, right? So, and as you can tell, when you click on it, it'll say open surface over here in your properties. Okay, those are all very important things to know what's going on with your item. So we'll join this back together again, and we'll select it, and now we joined everything, so we have a watertight closed surface, and it's still a poly surface. Okay, so say we want to use that line. So you know what a single surface is, and you know what a poly surface is. Many put together to make an item, and a nerve surface or single surface is just one item. And we'll talk about how to make this into one item at a later date, because we're still on curves right now, and you're getting a lot of extra information. So it's good to know, though. So we'll go back to our curves and grab that curve here, right? And we'll go to our norm. We want to draw, maybe we want something coming out, but we don't want it all the way down to the bottom of the top. We want it coming out at the middle or something, right? And it says select our surface, so we'll select our surface, and now we can draw that curve. We can put that point anywhere we want, right? But sometimes it gets a little hard to find out where exactly you want to draw from the surface. So if I click on it and it shows me there, it's coming straight out. Now we can add something to that. Maybe you want a little, I don't know, diamond set on there or something, or a little ball or whatever. You know, it's coming out like that, right? But it selects the entire item, right? So, but if you go to your line curve and you go to normal and you turn this to ignore trims yes, now when I select on something, when I go to another surface, I'm not going to select that other surface. It's going to keep me to that one surface. It automatically tells me, okay, this is one surface here, and that's the surface I wanted. And then if I click on it, it'll draw it out or in or out from that surface given the norms, right? I guess basically if if it's difficult to find, if you go and click on it and click on your item, and you don't want the entire surface, we'll change this back to no, because sometimes it can be where am I selecting? Am I getting the bottom? Am I getting the top? Which side am I getting? So it just makes it a little easier to make sure that you're grabbing that correct surface. So again, a norm, trim yet no. Now I can select the entire item. Normal, yes. It only gives me one. So I want them exploded so that I can select that curve going in that normal direction. So now when I click on that top surface, it'll drag it straight out or in to normal of that surface. Thanks very much, and we'll move on to the next one, which is angle.